Thank you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me. I'm still alive. You're right. I'm visiting beautiful Moscow as is today, so it's really nice. So we're going to talk about some tips using real games example. I heard it was something that was much asked for, because a lot of time we give talks and we talk about how to do this, how to do that, but we don't have concrete examples. I think this is solving that. A few words to start with. I'm in the process of writing a book about this content, so your feedback is very welcome. If you think it's good, relevant, not relevant, some things are missing, please come talk to me. I'll be very happy to hear your feedback. Second thing, in order to explain the whys and the hows of producer's job and what we're supposed to do, I'm going to use real games, obviously, but I'm also going to use some metaphors. Interestingly enough, I found that all my metaphors in this speech were about moving. And more specifically, they were about moving in an unknown space. And this really struck me because if you know the definition of playing, instead of playing a game, it's often referred to as exploring the uncertainty. And that's what makes a game really interesting. And I feel those two notions are really close, moving in an unknown space, exploring the uncertainty. And because it's a very rationalized approach, I consider this speech as the foundations for a mechanic of a highly replayable strategy game using resource management. If you think about the producer's job, it's a lot about resource management. So if there are any publishers in the room who are interested in making this game, who think there is a great target audience for that, come talk to me and we'll make a great game together. So who am I? I'm Stephane Assadourian, 20 years of experience. I worked on these games. In the last 3 years, I created my consulting company. Now I'm coaching people, producers, and I'm trying to allow them to reach higher quality at a lower cost. Producing is quite complex. It requires a lot of skills, and we're going to dive into it. So, a few months ago, I was at Gamescom, and I was Gamescom, and I met a lot of producers, and some messages were really recurring, like they kept coming. So when I asked about some production issues, people told me, of course we have production issues. I don't know any production who doesn't have issues. So, well, it's not necessarily good news for you. It's good news for me because I have a lot of business for that, but I really want to help you guys nail those issues and so that we can get on with the right value for your games. And producers are asking for help. They're also saying, I don't have the complete image. It seems like when I make decisions, the context is not entirely known, and therefore it's complicated. That's the unknown space part. So there is a struggle, and I've been asking myself, why the struggle? Part of the answer lies in these statistics. 90% of the time, from my experience, the vision is unclear. So it means you don't know what game you're making. And because we don't know what game we're making, it's a problem. It's a really big problem. 90% of these games have another issue. It's that they don't have any clear product strategy. And that means that they don't understand who they are for, who's going to buy this. And this is a huge problem, because if you don't know who your players are, how can you create value for them? You cannot. So you pass your gates, whether it's a mobile game, whether it's a premium game, you pass conception gate, you have a vision, or you think so, and then you went on to pre-production, you do your vertical slice, and 3-6 months down the line, you end up in a meeting room, and somebody says, so, should we add loot or not? And while the question is really good, the answer is not accessible to you, because the vision is unclear. And it's not accessible to me either. There is no right or wrong answer for that. So you're sinking into feature creeping, and you're developing things. There's a billion ways to develop a loot system. And so you don't know which one is the right one. You don't even know if you should. So we're losing precious time. And production is a race against time, that's for sure. It looks a bit painful in this image. It doesn't have to be that painful, I think. But if it's a race against time, I'm asking myself, where is the starting line? And also, where is the finish line? And, what is the shape of the racetrack? Do you really think like it's straight ahead and it's just about going as fast as possible, like the image suggests? I disagree with that. I think the shape of the racetrack is hardly ever a straight line. In fact, I have this metaphor for you today, and I think it's a race against time in a dark maze. And that's why we don't know where we're going. And it's okay. Don't freak out. It's exactly, once you know that, the thing you need to do is to stop moving and not go too fast. Just, you need to see more of the maps. There's a huge fog of war on your project and you don't exactly know what it is. So you need to zoom out. That's how we get to see more of the map. And zooming out, what does it mean? Essentially, it means make a status update as producers. So there's a bunch of things that you need to assess. First and foremost, you need to assess your current development phase. Are you in conception, in pre-production? Are you live? Are you trying to close something, a production update or something? Where are you at exactly? This sounds very trivial. I have clients who have projects who are in 3 different phases at once, and so they cannot move, they cannot go anywhere until they resolve this question. You can only be in one of these development phases at once. Once you know that, obviously, you have a deliverable attached to it, associated with it. So assess that as well. What are you doing exactly? What are you trying to produce? Is it too ambitious maybe? Or maybe you don't have the right team? Maybe some key skills are lacking. So you need to gather data like that about the threats. So you need to talk to your members, your leads, understand the blockers, understand the threats. And what I will ask you to do once you've done that is to make a list of your threats and prioritize it. And what I mean by that is that number 1 is what kills your project first. And we will use that. And it's super important to do as a producer. Now, with this update in mind, I can tell you, you can execute the plan. It's very simple. You know all those words. First, you do the milestone, then production plan, you monitor the progress, and we're going to talk about failure. But I feel like if I only tell you that, I miss a great opportunity. So I'm going to use the metaphor and the language to translate these keywords in order to try and explain the whys and the hows of how to do that. So now it becomes the algorithm to escape the dark maze. And first of all, we're going to try to plot a trajectory, which means we're going to try to locate the exit. What is it that we want to reach? What status? What state? Then, before moving, we're going to try and consider walking on that trajectory. Analyze the terrain, which is what production plan does. Then we're going to start moving, and we're going to try to go as fast as possible now that we have a path, and monitor the distance to the exit to make sure that we're going the right direction. And then we're going to talk about dead ends. All right, so let's start. So milestones, what are they? Well, essentially, they are must-go-through flags. So in this dark maze, you want to push your build to different flags. And they are actually, they are build statuses. They are build states that you expect to have at a certain time. So in order to do that properly, you need to visualize the build evolution. Of course, you don't do that on your own. You talk to your creative lead, you talk to your people, you talk to the key stakeholder of your project. So if you do that, it will allow you to tackle down your core and your sensitive systems first, and also to be incremental. So the first milestone should always, always, always be your most threatening aspect. So you get your prioritized threats list, and that's your first milestone. The second milestone, being incremental, will be M1 plus something, M3 will be M2 plus something, and so on, like that. And your last milestone, obviously, is your deliverable. So you have M1, M2, M3, and while those are really good key names, when you want to refer to them, you should really name them differently. You should name them after what players can achieve. The reason for that is that each milestone is actually a build status. So it is an experience, it is something in progress, it's a work in progress, and it's something you need to achieve. So I'm going to use an example of one of my clients. They're in pre-production, they're making a vertical slice, and they have these 3 milestones that span over several months. So we named them together using their threat list. And the first one was this: 2 synchronized online players can move around in an empty map. And this is because for these young guys, very talented, making an online game was a challenge. They're very good in animation, they're very good in plenty of things, but I'm not talking local, I'm talking remote. They really wanted to nail down the aspect that it would work online. So that's the first milestone. The second milestone was M1 plus some basic AI already, and the online players can now combo kill the AI, and we have 50% of the map, which is LD ready. So already in milestone 2, we can see that we start to have some fun, potentially, or not, and if we don't, then we can de-risk it, and we can understand what it should be. And on milestone 3, it should be your deliverable. So entire demo polished as per their storyboard. All right, now that we've located the exit, we know where we're going, we're going to consider walking on that trajectory. So analysis of the terrain. A production plan essentially is how everybody's skills and efforts are going to push the build on the right trajectory that you plan for it. So that's where I want you to become very, very, very detailed. It's a known fact that producers need to have this zoom in, zoom out flexibility. And while you zoomed out to assess the project status, you really need to zoom in now to understand what's going to happen in the next 2 months. But don't be too detailed afterwards, because that's not important for now. So only go one milestone at a time. And so, following my example, this is how it looks, still to the current milestone. So I only expanded the epic for the multiplayer. And it's nothing too fancy. I mean, everybody understands that. You have to synchronize the character's position, rotation. You have to synchronize the animation. Same thing for the enemy. What is really interesting here is that you have to understand the dependencies. As a producer, it's your job to make sure that you feel where the dependencies are, because those are your weak points. So, of course, we start to work on NPC and AI, because that's what we're going to deliver in the multiplayer as well. The features, which is basically another word for behaviors here, is really, really key, because there is a strong dependency on the features with the multiplayer and also with the characters and the enemies and the map. So it's not the same thing if your character can jump that high or not, and it has a strong impact on the level design and how you're going to build this level. So this is the zooming in detail, the kind of level that I want. Okay, now that we have a production plan for this milestone, first thing you do is you make a kickoff meeting because you have a plan. So you gather the team together and you say, okay guys, this is where we're at, this is where we're going, and this is the plan. Questions, blah, blah, blah. So you know how to do that. And then your job becomes to understand how to check the distance to the exit. So it looks like that. People come into work every day. The red light starts to be green. People commit unoptimized stuff and buggy stuff to the build. And this is your feature progress tracking. This is what producers do. This is business as usual. Take this time and this opportunity to every day divide the green stuff by the total stuff to maintain the completion percentage. This is really easy to do. It's super simple. Send an email, put it on a board, on a whiteboard. Maybe the VP is interesting, maybe the CEO is interesting, maybe the head of production is interested. Your team is certainly interested. They want to know, where we're at. Are we at 23% or 47 or 67? So that's easy to do this. Define the expected quality level. As you can see here, the communication wheel for this milestone was really, really low. We just want the basic thing, the functionality working. We don't want anything too fancy because we want to prove that it works. Emote system, on the other hand, is already quality level 2, for instance. And then, with every task, write the definition of done. What does it mean that this task is done? And it's going to be useful, and we're going to see this in a minute. Now that you've done that, that's business as usual. As I said, another challenge comes to you, and it's really about understanding that it's not your feature progress document that is moving into the dark maze, it's your build. So you need to unify both. You need to make sure that whatever lies on your document and that you're tracking is actually what you have in your build. And this is where it's tricky. The only powerful way I know to do that is to use build reviews. So you need to do a lot of build reviews very recurrently. I suggest every week at the very least. And you want the build reviews to be bug-free. That means you have to prepare with QA. And maybe you do this on Fridays, so you prepare with QA on Monday, but you want to make sure that by Friday you have a bug-free build. Because on this build, you're going to criticize the content, you're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but probably some QA people will be with you and is going to enter all the bugs that you're going to see. And this is really, really important because the build reviews feed the backlog. Now, we start to see why it's more and more difficult to actually reach the next milestone, because this insane cycle of weekly build reviews is actually putting a lot of pressure on the team. And that's why you need to plan with a 30% buffer or something like that. It's because not only are they working on the feature progress, but now they also need to fix bugs for the build, for the next build review. And if you don't do that, you don't know where you are. You're in the dark maze lost somewhere because you don't know what your build is. And so it's really, really important to understand that the only thing that has value, whether you're independent, whether you're a big publisher, it doesn't matter. You need your build to be exactly what you're. So you need to play the build. And you need to know exactly what it is. If you don't have a build, you have nothing. So another aspect is it should always be playable. Always. So when you do that, you have a really good measure of your team's performance. So that's really nice. And if you want to improve it, you have to create what I call, winning conditions. And for that, I use the theory of flow from Csikszentmihalyi, that I'm sure you all know about. And essentially what it says is if people have these three things at once, they are more likely to enter the flow. And what I find as well is that this works really well. In fact, when you do a proper production plan, you have the first one that is checked. And Csikszentmihalyi also says that the people who are intrinsically motivated to achieve their task are even more likely to enter the flow. So among your team members, those people who really want to make a great game, they will be really, really sensitive to that. And it will work on them, most likely. I've seen it happen. Trust me, it works wonderful. Last but not least, what do we do when we fail? So if it's not working, first thing first, it's rarely too late to get some help. I know that firsthand. A lot of people I talk to who become clients, they think it's too late and stuff, but most of the time we can do something. Sometimes it's too late, and that's when it's beyond the dangerous milestone. So this is the range and the spectrum of failure you can face. So it ranges from complicated to dangerous. And if you stay within those two, lower bound and upper bound, there is probably something we can work together. So complicated means maybe you have too many bugs and you don't know where you're going, so you need a way to prioritize these bugs. And dangerous is probably because you're going to E3 and your demo is not ready and you have 24 hours left. Something was wrong in the organization, but you can sort these things out. So again, advice, what you need to do, first you zoom out, you go back to the vision, because you cannot execute without a vision. The second thing is if you consider cuts, but you have to assess three parameters. The quality, how is it going to be impacted? How much time do you save by cutting this feature? So maybe you can find quick wins here. You save a lot of time, and the quality is not really impacted, so yeah, you cut this. And also how it impacts your business objectives. Super important. And last but not least, sometimes you want to rearrange the team. That's what I call track team, to fix one aspect of the game. So it's like an intervention group. And essentially what it is you pull some people off the production plan and tell them to just work on that feature and fix this problem. And that's it for today. Thank you for having me.